Today on CyberBytes, the podcast, I welcome Bill Moore, founder and CEO of XONA Systems. Bill and his team are revolutionizing secure remote access for OT and ITS systems. It was a pleasure to talk with Bill following some big wins. I'm Oliver Legg, co-founder of Asperon Search. Enjoy the show. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Bill Moore, the founder and CEO of XONA Systems. How's it going, Bill?
It's going great, Oliver. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. We bumped into each other at a next era breakfast at RSA, so good to catch up virtually as well. Where in the States are you at the moment?
Annapolis, Maryland. So we're headquartered on the East Coast.
Yeah, good stuff. Seems to be a security and an OT hub up in that corner of the States at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, intelligence agencies in Maryland and Virginia is right up the road from us. From headquarters, we're within 30 minutes of that.
Yeah, well, right place to be. Well, for anyone in the audience that hasn't heard of XONA Systems and isn't aware of you, if you could give a bit of an introduction into who you guys are and the problem you're solving.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, I'm Bill Moore. So I'm founder and CEO of XONA. Founded XONA about 6 years ago. We provide a very simple and secure, we sometimes use the word zero trust, but it's a holistic way of looking at zero trust, remote operations platform. So we enable the ability to access critical systems from anywhere. And do it in a way where we don't expose those critical systems to the internet or even to, in some cases, the IT network if it's not needed.
Yeah, awesome. And OT security seems to be an interesting place at the moment because there seems to be more and more firms being founded to solve kind of more and newer and more niche problems in the OT security space. So how are you kind of comparing to some of the other bigger, more established names out there? And how do you either compete against them or how do you work with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Oliver. Yeah, so when I look at kind of remote access, secure remote access, remote operations, and so forth, you first have to kind of look at what has been done in IT over the last 2 decades, right? So for the last 20 plus years, there have been a number of technologies that have come out to secure remote access, including VPNs, VDI, there's application jump servers, you have secure file transfer, multi-factor authentication. So all of these technologies have been bolted on over the last many years. So there's a lot of technology debt, and this has served pretty well in sort of the IT enterprise where you have economies of scale and you have lots of users, hundreds, maybe thousands of users, hundreds of applications, sometimes thousands of applications. So you can kind of have all of that big infrastructure. But in OT, it's kind of the opposite. The digital transformation and the digital edge is expanding. There are more digital assets at the edge. So you need to have a much lighter weight, a much simpler approach, and a more secure approach, frankly, to providing remote operations for folks in the field. And unlike IT, where everything's kind of consolidated to the cloud and the data center, this sort of spread of digital assets at the edge, combined with the much fewer users needing access to that, really required a need for a different approach. So, and that's where we came in.
Yeah, good stuff. And I mean, really dumbing it down for people that kind of aren't able to make the transition from IT remote access to OT remote access. What kind of real world examples are there of when someone would need XONA?
Yeah, so what we've done is the way we've architected the solution is we don't require agents to be put on the OT systems, and we also don't require agents or clients to put on the IT systems. So the ability to use requirements specifically around third-party tracker vendor access. So we see a lot of use cases around not only employees needing to be able to remotely access these critical systems, but the OEMs to be able to patch the systems, to be able to troubleshoot and operate those without having to go on site. It's very costly for a lot of these OEMs, and I mean, I can throw a few out there like GE, Siemens, Rockwell, Emerson. There's a ton of them, right? And they need to be able to access their systems without seeing other OEM systems, and there has to be the ability to have site level controls for the companies to be able to know what they're accessing, when they're accessing. So really having a lot more granular control and site level controls, because there's a big difference in terms of the safety around IT systems and OT. So you want to have those extra protections to be able to enable or disable remote operations, or have the ability to have a wait lobby and then make sure that there's somebody at the control room, for instance, explicitly giving access if there's safety considerations. So
yeah, good stuff. And then your background's interesting because you came from a sales and I mean specifically a federal tech sales background. So what was your story from kind of federal technology sales to now being a founder and CEO of an OT specific security company?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. I'm not going to say it got into OT by accident, but it sort of was, right? I have a lot of experience in cybersecurity, actually early on in engineering, but then in sales and business development. Worked for a number of companies like FireEye and Varonis that were solving various problems, on the cybersecurity side. So I had gone to work for a company that had provided more of kind of a virtual mobile infrastructure, company called Hypori that's doing a lot of work in DoD today. And one of the things that I learned from that experience is that, VDI and VMI, or virtual mobile infrastructure, a lot of times requires a lot of infrastructure. And so one of the thoughts I had was how, making it simpler while I was there. And I teamed up with folks that I had met from FireEye, and we started exploring ways of kind of having less infrastructure, but still providing that ability to isolate the protocols and not expose those, and to provide no data in transit, to the endpoint or to the remote user's device. So that was the beginning, and we kind of the idea came from working with tactical units within DoD. When we launched our MVP, or really our beta, we were having various folks test it, and we found that in OT, specifically in natural gas distribution, there was an immediate need. There was complexity, there was a lack of security, and there was just a lack of resources to be able to manage complex infrastructure for providing technician access to SCADA applications and HMIs and things like that in the OT environment. So we quickly found that there was a lot of demand there very early in kind of early betas. And from that moment, and this was really in late 2017, we decided to focus in on OT, and we essentially built this for OT with our first customer through the MVP, version 2, version 3, and so forth. And from there, we were fortunate enough to sign an OEM agreement with GE, and now we're deployed and that was for power generation initially. We've also done some work with them in renewables, but that launched us internationally. So we're deployed in more than 30 countries today, which is exciting, and we're working with some of the other OEMs as well now too.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, as an early stage firm, especially when the GE agreement came off, that must have been a kind of a sigh of relief and a lot of work ahead, but kind of the realization, right? We're seriously onto something now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it really helped us get to our funding round, specifically our Series A round. We did have some seed funding initially, but then once we started, getting orders from GE, we were able to expand the company in sales and engineering, to support not only GE but direct customers and other strategic partnerships that we were developing.
Yeah,
So.
awesome. And when it came to the expansion and thinking, right, we've now got the cash to grow and to build this, was it naturally clear where you needed to build and what teams you needed to invest in, or was that a bit of trial and error during the process?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, hindsight's always 2020, right? So there's always a little bit of trial and error. Yeah, I mean, we built the solution, with a very lean engineering team. I think what we recognized as we were growing the technology in the company, that we were seeing the potential to be part of this OT enterprise, or sort of within the IT OT enterprise and converged. So over the last year, we've really spent a lot more effort, and we've invested heavier in engineering to make sure that we can support the requirements for integration with the IT OT world, and that's been also a big game changer for us. So we've landed some very large customers, by really listening and making sure that we could support large enterprise.
Yeah, awesome. And you'd mentioned the large enterprise maritime deal that's recently come off. So that's fantastic. What can you say about that?
Well, I think that's very exciting. So in maritime, and I think this is across the board, we have customers in energy, oil and gas, manufacturing, and so forth now. But yeah, that particular deal is interesting because it is this idea of vendor agnostic remote operations. Particularly in maritime, it's very expensive to send an OEM technical technician or engineer to a ship, especially if it's underway, or even if it's in port, right? It's sometimes very difficult to get that. So there's usually a day on each end of that of travel, which they're being charged for, plus the day troubleshooting. So that's a very expensive proposition to get somebody to a site. And what we've seen, and not only in maritime, but in other verticals, is somewhere between 80 and 95% of all troubleshooting can be done remotely. So with industrial control systems, so that really reduces the cost, and obviously the operational efficiencies of being able to operate that. So what we've put a platform in that the maritime company calls vendor agnostic remote operations, and that allows all of the OEMs, whether it's the engine control room, the water and wastewater treatment systems, the navigation systems, to be able to connect and patch and troubleshoot their systems, whether the ship is underway over SATCOM or in port, where there might be broadband connectivity. So yeah, I mean, it's been I think a game changer. Also provides a level of assurance and a reduction of risk to be able to have the forensics and the information about things that are happening, and to go back and troubleshoot things if there was a mistake made. Obviously, we implement protocol isolation. We don't expose the protocols on the ship, so that reduces the attack surface. I would say eliminate, but drastically reduces the risk of ransomware and things like that. So
yeah, awesome. And I mean, maritime is clearly going to be a big area for you, and now you've got a pretty incredible use case to really hunt within that industry as well. How, bearing in mind that's a pretty major deal for you guys in the stage that you're at the moment, how did it come about?
Yeah, so I think we we were able, through our sales and marketing efforts, to find out about the project. And then we really spent a lot of time listening to the customer. And it was a large project, not just with us, but there was sort of it was a change in philosophy. And I think a lot of this has to do with, having better risk management and governance over what the OEMs were doing. We see this across not just maritime, but manufacturing, other industries, where a lot of these OEMs have a lot of control over their systems, right, within these companies. And I think there's a need now, and I think a lot of companies are realizing that, hey, I think we've handed over all the keys, and we need a key here too to be able to turn things off or turn things on, or let these OEMs know, hey, this is when you can access your systems and when you can, and have that additional governance and risk management, right? Because obviously, with all the problems and ransomware and so forth, third-party access is a big issue, right? And being able to, because that can expose some of these companies to ransomware or vulnerabilities in their OEM systems that they don't know about, right? If they don't have that oversight.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure. And you said something interesting about originally building the product with a very lean engineering team. And correct me if I'm wrong about you being kind of non-technical, having come from the sales kind of background. But what was your role in the very beginning as a kind of non-technical founder that wasn't engineering and developing the product? Kind of what did you do, and then what did you utilize from other members of the team really early on?
Well, yeah, very early on, it was, when we were building the MVP, it was essentially a couple of developers and me, right? So I was obviously doing all the sales, all the marketing, writing the data sheets, the product, giving the demos. So I kind of wore a lot of hats, right? Figure out who we were going to talk to, where were we going to target. So the strategy, the sales execution, the sales engineering, the installation at a customer site, all of that, right? As well as marketing. So, my career kind of spans over 20 years. I started out in network and security operations on the technical side. I was a sales engineer before I got into sales and business development. I actually did strategic marketing as well for a while. So that kind of all of that experience helped, I think, in the early stage, because I could kind of, not that I would be great at each one of those, but I was passable enough to, do those jobs, early on. So.
Yeah. And now being what, kind of 30-ish people, how kind of in the trenches are you now compared to back then?
Yeah, it's a lot different now. I mean, we have a great team. We have a great VP of engineering that's heading it up. We have, technical leadership in the field. A VP of sales that has done this before for other, large companies like Darktrace and Awake Security. And we also have very strong marketing and, great sales and marketing automation engine. Not to say that, I have to get involved in a lot of things in terms of, when we're going into new markets, it's always good for me to go in to show, hey, I'm committed to this region. So, I'll travel in those types of occasions, and I'll go to different events. Obviously, we're going through our SOC 2 compliance right now. So I have to, kind of read a lot of stuff and approve it. So, and make sure, sort of our back office operations are running smoothly and securely. And so I'm probably more operational now, combined with a little bit of sales. And obviously there's always raising money. That's the number one thing, right? So always out there, always looking for investors or, strategics, and, what's the next step in the funding, right? So.
For sure. What bits do you miss about those kind of really early, I'm in the trenches, I'm doing everything, I'm in front of every single customer? Because I mean, we're at a much earlier stage, right, in terms of age of our business and also headcount. But when we got to 9 people, I kind of stepped away and was doing a lot more operational bits. And then there were just clear parts that I just really missed doing. It was like I missed being a winning business, filling roles, and actually just being heavily involved with the sales aspect. So from that perspective, now you've grown. What do you miss?
I miss going, and look, I still go and meet with customers, right? Especially our larger customers. I think it's good for me to get out there and do that. I guess I always really like sales engineering. So believe it or not, I kind of miss giving the demos every day. Although, I still do it here and there. It's just not that often, right? So I think, giving the demo and seeing how the customer resonates with certain features, and then, really kind of digging in and seeing what's compelling to them, where their problems lie, and all that. So that sort of early stage process, sort of the top of funnel, getting to that proof of concept and getting that out there. Those are sort of the things I probably like the most. So yeah, I would say I miss that sort of initial top to middle of funnel engagement. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's what drives the business. So
Yep.
try to do some of it still. And
Yeah.
you mentioned about the fundraising just being a constant ongoing process, and I mean, especially in the climate at the moment, it's obviously a tough market to be it's getting a bit better, but a tough market to be having those funding conversations, and the types of terms VCs are willing to offer. But I mean, you've got a crack team of kind of A round investors. So you had Data Tribe, Next Era, and was it TFX?
TFX Capital, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you came to choosing those three, what was the thought process behind those three in particular? And were they standalone beneficial, or was it a case of the three of them together kind of created the team that you were looking for?
No, actually, they kind of initially we had conversations with Data Tribe, and is in Maryland, right? They're right up the road from our headquarters. So we had conversations early on. We actually got involved in them a little later than some of the early seed stage companies. So we did the Series A with their what they call DTO, or Data Tribe Opportunities Fund. So yeah, that was. I think there was just some synergy there in the fact that they were an early investor in Dragos, right up the street from us, and there's synergy with Dragos, right, for us, complementary to what they do. So they were very focused on cybersecurity and OT as well. So there was a natural fit there. In terms of the others, we have veterans in our company. And TFX likes to back veteran founded, or veteran managed in certain cases companies. And so TFX kind of came along with that. Next Era, we were very fortunate. We had some introductions there. We were looking for a strategic, right? So we had talked with technology specific, complementary technology VCs. We had talked with industry specific, I mean, even in manufacturing, VCs. But we found that our early wins within the energy space, and we've had wins in renewables as well as traditional energy, and I think that aligned really well with what NextEra was looking for, and obviously we're working with them now to help them more simply and operate their assets, whether it's traditional energy, power gen, or renewable assets, right?
Yeah,
transmission, power gen.
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously one of the most desirable kind of CVCs for any OT or industrial security focused vendor. So yeah, you've got a good team there. And I understand you're trying to kind of or are kind of breaking into the federal space as well, where there's naturally a big critical infrastructure piece and a lot of investment from the infrastructure bill happening in that space. How does that, when you're actually selling into it, beyond things like having FedRAMP and the regulations that go there, how does it differ selling into the Fed space compared to the enterprise and the commercial space?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of experience selling into federal, so I think first of all, it takes patience, and it also takes a recognition that you don't want to invest all at once in federal. You want to pick your paddles early and get a kind of a beachhead, then you start investing after you get that first account. But you don't. Yeah, it's I've seen a lot of technology companies that they see the big deals in Fed and they invest heavy without understanding. Yeah, there are things like FedRAMP if you're doing cloud, and that's a very expensive proposition. But there's also, getting in DoD, for instance, going through the process of getting an authority to operate called an ATO, and making sure if you're using crypto that it's FIPS 140-2 validated, and all of those things. And so there's a lot of compliance in Fed. The sales cycles are long, but the deals can be very lucrative, right? So, I've taken a measured approach just because I understand the challenge of selling into the federal market. But we have a few Fed customers. We have a very large Fed customer that we're getting ready to roll out here in the next literally 2 weeks. So that's very exciting. And I think we'll probably be more strategic next year. We will be more strategic with Fed next year, and that we'll start expanding from our initial accounts.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, we've helped a few. Well, we're helping one other OT security vendor at the moment get their FedRAMP certification and their FIPS 140, and they're tough to staff. let alone then do the selling afterwards. They're tough to find the staff for those projects just to get compliant. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, we're coming up to the very end of Q3 2023 as we're recording this. So what have people got to look out for and be excited about XONA for Q4 and then going into 2024?
Yeah, so we're releasing our major version of we're very excited about. We kind of have it codenamed Pericles internally, so sharing that. But that'll be coming out next month. It's exciting because we've really looked at the space, and we want to make sure that this platform is a lot more flexible and sort of deployment options and ease of deployment, as well as integration. So we see a lot more integrations. We've done integrations with Nozomi and a few others, but we want to expand that to really look at other technologies, whether in the OT space or in some cases in the IT space, and make sure that we're well aligned strategically in our go-to-market with other technologies. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, OT has a Robin Bertier from Network Perception was talking about it, the kind of the better together and more secure together kind of mindset that the OT industry has. And it's I don't know, it's a bit rare. It's you get it in certain areas of IT security, but it's much more kind of headbutting each other in that space than it is in OT, where people do come together. So it's good to see.
Yeah. Robin, he's doing great stuff over there at Network Perception. I know him, and I kind of look at us as kind of together. We're providing that zero trust. We're doing it in the user context, access context. He's doing it really more on the segmentation, the network side. So I think we're very, very complementary in providing that defense in depth and layered approach. So
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Bill, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. So thanks for making the time and giving the audience a view on XONA. And really excited to see what you've got in store for H2, the new release.
Yeah, very exciting.
We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode of CyberBytes, the podcast. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and tell your friends. If you want to explore being a guest or how Aspiron Search can help you build high-performing security and go-to-market teams, then get in touch on LinkedIn or info@aspironsearch.com.